6 Sunday at 11:30.
This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. China's hardline rulers showed today how much they're in command now. The party Central Committee fired the moderate General Secretary Zhao Ziyang, and the Army propaganda chief took over as editor of the government's official People's Daily newspaper. To underscore the government's new confidence, it allowed American television to broadcast live from Beijing via satellite for only the second time since the crackdown. John Sheehan has our report.
Supreme Leader Deng Xiaoping officially dumped another protege today, but left the Communist Party's major problem unsolved. How to keep China open to foreign money and technology, but keep out Western ideas about democratic rights. The new head of the Chinese Communist Party is Jiang Zemin, party leader from Shanghai, a Soviet-trained technocrat with a reputation for attracting foreign investors to his city. He is credited with suppressing the wave of angry protests in Shanghai that followed the massacre 3 weeks ago in Beijing.
I think Deng Xiaoping wanted to put a new face, but to reinforce his old policy, which is that he is for economic reform, but he is not for political reform.
Ousted in disgrace is the 69-year-old head of the party, Zhao Ziyang. He is the second party chief in just over 2 years to lose his job for being soft on student demonstrators. He is said to have opposed the military crackdown on unarmed demonstrators at Tiananmen Square that led to heavy loss of life. Zhao hasn't been seen in public since last month when he made a conciliatory visit to hunger strikers at the square. Zhao has been stripped of all official posts, but was not expelled from the party. The Central Committee announced, however, that he remains under investigation. China's Central Television showed what it said was a unanimous vote to fire the party chief for the mistakes of supporting turmoil and splitting the party.
With Deng Xiaoping turning 85 in 2 months, there are now some new contenders in the lineup to succeed him. The party is trying to look unified, but the differing factions remain. And the real power struggle could very well still lie ahead. Bob?
John, how do you think all this is going to play? What's the mood in Beijing right now?
Well, Jiang Zemin, the new party head, has provably one of the least secure jobs in China, so he's going to carry out his mandate with enthusiasm. That means more arrests of intellectuals, professors, and a heavy dose of political education in the universities.
Thank you, John. Communist Vietnam said today that colleges will improve living conditions for students and give them more say in decision-making. The concessions follow Vietnam's first student protest in 35 years. And a new four-man leadership team named today in Hungary is dominated by supporters of democratic change. Effectively removed as top leader is Karoly Gross. He remains Communist Party General Secretary, however. Suspicious Israeli security officials questioned an American relief worker today about his 30-hour abduction in the occupied Gaza Strip. We have more on that now from Martha Teichner.
At Chris George's office in Gaza today, nobody was talking. Reporters were not welcome. His home on the West Bank looked deserted. His phone rang unanswered. The happy ending yesterday to his bizarre kidnapping was followed today by a rain of political fallout. Israeli authorities say they are suspicious of the incident because Chris George refuses to cooperate with their investigation and seems sympathetic to his captors.
Toward my captors, I have mixed feelings. But the experience hasn't affected the way I feel toward Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip.
In Gaza, authorities continued their search for the kidnappers, begun Thursday. Chris George reportedly won't say where he was held, although he knows Gaza well, and has identified only one of his abductors, Mohammed Abu Nasser, a Palestinian militant who once asked for his help in building a playground. After his release, Chris George thanked the Palestinians for their help, not the Israelis.
I am especially grateful and moved by the show of support from all levels and all sides of the Palestinian community.
Alon Liel, spokesman for the Israeli Foreign Ministry, described George's account as strange and said the Palestinians don't deserve any credit. It's just an encouragement to repeat this kind of activity, he said. The next time the guy will get killed. In fact, Chris George has said his kidnapping was a deplorable crime, one reason for his apparent refusal to cooperate with Israeli authorities. He wants to go on working in the Gaza Strip. But he probably won't get the chance. If he doesn't leave the country on his own, the Israelis may force him to go. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
And still ahead on the CBS Evening News, we'll have reports on the 3 big oil spills in American waters today, and later the scandal that's shaking the foundation of the U.S. Housing Department.
Life's finer pleasures. Happily, some more affordable. Like Grey Poupon Dijon mustard. Created from an original Dijon recipe so fine it even has white wine to enhance fillets, enliven sauces, and dress up salad dressings. So enjoy one of life's finer pleasures.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
But of course, Grey Poupon, one of life's finer pleasures.
This is smooth, creamy yogurt. And this is how your taste buds see it. Add the nutty, crunchy taste of Post Grape Nuts, the cereal with oomph, and send your taste buds on a wild adventure. Oomph it up with Grape Nuts.
Phew! The foot odor in this family. It knocks me out from across the room.
Get Odor Eaters. Odor Eaters are cushiony insoles blended with microscopic activated charcoal, world's most powerful odor destroyer, to eat up and destroy the worst foot odor. Only Odor Eaters has it. Dr. Scholl's doesn't.
Foot odor's gone.
Nothing destroys foot odor like Odor Eaters. And there's an Odor Eaters for every shoe. For ferocious sneaker odor, get Sneaker Tamers insoles.
Good friends and good food, but my stomach aches. My party and my Lanta too.
Double strength Mylanta 2 with nearly double the acid neutralizing power of any leading regular strength brand.
Because my life takes my Lanta 2.
This first weekend of summer was marked in just the way no one wanted today by 3 serious oil spills. One was off the coast of Rhode Island, the second in Delaware, the third in the Houston Ship Channel. We're starting our coverage with the Rhode Island spill. Lynn Brown has the story there.
Workers began cleaning up Rhode Island's beaches today, where more than 1 million gallons of diesel oil was spilled into the entrance of Narragansett Bay. The oil already covers more than a 50-square-mile area. The Greek tanker World Prodigy struck a reef yesterday while navigating into the bay. The tanker was operating without a pilot and passed on the wrong side of a buoy. Officials are calling it a major spill.
This is a very serious occurrence, and we're not taking anything for granted.
The ship was on its way from a refinery in Venezuela to Providence, but because it was diesel and not crude oil, Washington officials are downplaying any similarity to the disaster in Alaska.
Well, this does not compare at all with Valdez. It's different kinds of oil that we have here. This one tends to evaporate more. As you can see, it's not that thick, mucky material that was in Alaska.
This Rhode Island coastline is the summer playground of some of the wealthiest people in the nation, and cleanup efforts in the area began almost immediately. Within about 3 hours of the spill, the tanker was surrounded by a containment boom and several small boats, trying to keep the slick from spreading. And on shore, a small army of workers began the tedious task of mopping up.
We'll get the main part of it today, but probably all week for this area.
Because the World Prodigy is owned by a company in Athens, U.S. officials are concerned about liability. The government has assumed the cost of the entire cleanup, pending later claims. Lynn Brown, CBS News, Newport, Rhode Island.
The Coast Guard said tonight the spill in the Delaware River may be worse than the one off Rhode Island, and the problem in containing the Texas spill so far has been the weather. More on all that now from Christine Negroni.
In Delaware, workers scooped pitchfork-sized tar balls out of the Delaware River after more than 1.5 million gallons of processed oil spilled from a tanker that had run aground.
All possible efforts are underway to minimize the environmental impact of the spill.
Hundreds of miles away in the Houston Ship Channel, strong winds forced thick black oil onto the islands of Galveston Bay. 250,000 gallons of heavy crude spilled after a tugboat and barge collided. Bad weather has hampered containment efforts.
With the frequent thunderstorms and the high winds and seas, it's been difficult to get personnel and equipment on scene to get as much boom out as we have on hand.
Coast Guard officials consider both spills significant, and they come just days after a special oil industry task force issued this warning.
The industry has neither the equipment or the response personnel in place and ready to deal with catastrophic tanker spills.
The oil companies are calling for a nationwide network to respond more quickly to spills, but one congressman questions the emphasis.
We have to do more than be prepared to clean up spills after they happen. They have to be prevented. They don't have to happen at all.
While it's too early to tell what caused this weekend spills or how severe the damage, environmentalists comforted themselves with this thought. The state of the nation's oil transportation system is now certain to get a second look. Christine Negroni, CBS News, New York.
It is now down to the late innings for Pete Rose. A judge will decide tomorrow whether the baseball commissioner can hold a hearing on Monday on gambling charges against the Cincinnati manager. But as the judge was making up his mind today, some longtime Rose fans seem to be changing theirs. Gary Reeves reports.
Program Super Dance. Almost 40,000 streamed into Cincinnati's Riverfront Stadium today to watch what some predict will be hometown hero Pete Rose's last stand as Reds manager.
I'll save the ticket stub, so it might be his last day as manager, and it might be worth something later on.
This has been a tough week for Pete Rose fans. In this town where most have stuck by him, reports that experts have found his fingerprints and his handwriting on baseball betting slips has shaken the faith of all but his staunchest supporters.
I thought it was mostly false accusations from other people, but now I think that Pete has probably done a few things that he's sorry about doing, and I think he's been a disappointment to a lot of fans.
Now on Cincinnati's west side, where Rose grew up, the talk at the sports bars has shifted from whether he gambled on baseball to how he should be punished.
If he is found guilty, I think that he should have a penalty and pay and suffer some of the consequences of going with that, but not for the rest of his life.
If he needs to be reprimanded, let's reprimand him, but let's not kick him out of baseball. That's giving him the death sentence. On the nearby Pete Rose ball fields, the same diamonds where Rose played as a boy, many of the little leaguers who are old enough to understand think Rose has let them down.
Kind of makes me mad because this guy that you look up to all these years may have cheated and betted on baseball.
Cincinnati's children still aspire to Pete Rose-style accomplishments, but each day here, fewer and fewer aspire to be Pete Rose. This afternoon, Rose told his radio audience he hopes to be the Reds manager for the next 10 years. Gary Reeves, CBS News, Cincinnati.
Hold out your finger, please.
In the last year or so, millions of people have decided to have their cholesterol checked. Many of them have also started eating healthier, including foods like Kellogg's Common Sense Oat Bran, with more oat bran than any leading ready-to-eat cereal. If you haven't tried either one of these things, we'd like to recommend them. There's at least one you'll really enjoy. Kellogg's Common Sense Oat Bran. To millions of people, it's the oat bran that makes sense.
Terry's family loves olive oil, but they could do without the excess fat and calories. So Terry, meet Pam. New olive oil Pam. It adds about 90% less fat and calories.
I used pressure-treated lumber, and I still have $800 in water damage. How come?
Even treated wood needs Thompson's Water Seal protection.
This patio was supposed to last for years. Now I have $1,200 in damage. Why?
Your concrete wasn't protected with Thompson's Water Seal. Thompson's penetrates into wood, brick, or concrete to form a barrier water can't get past, even when driven by 98-mile-per-hour winds.
Let it rain. This time I use Thompson's, a great defense against repair expense.
Thompson's, the first name in lasting protection.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For indigestion and gas, your medical answer is Extra Strength Maalox Plus. Its doctor-recommended formula neutralizes more than any leading antacid. Ask your doctor about Extra Strength Maalox Plus.
The scandal at the Department of Housing and Urban Development is starting to look like a barrel of trouble with no bottom. The New York Times reports today that during the mid-1980s, top officials at the HUD regional office in New York solicited donations from the people they regulated, including builders, housing managers, and architects. Some of the money went to HUD officials' favorite charities, but in other cases, it was used for parties. Those are just the latest irregularities to be probed at HUD, which is the subject tonight of our Washington Notebook.
It does boggle the mind that this array, imagine this, there was no list that we were ever able to be made aware of what HUD owned. How could they have even asked for payment? I mean, talk about open for fraud or abuse.
A dozen or more HUD contractors are under investigation amid reports that as much as $100 million may have been embezzled from department programs. Money that had been earmarked to renovate housing for the poor instead wound up going to contractors who had inside connections with the Reagan administration. To get the contracts, builders hired prominent Republicans such as former Interior Secretary James Watt, Richard Nixon's one-time Attorney General John Mitchell, and former U.S. Senator Edward Brooke. They were paid handsome fees because when they called HUD, HUD always listened.
The mismanagement in HUD is mind-boggling, even without the crooks. Just the pure mismanagement that no one knows what anybody else is doing and no one cares is astounding.
This is the man the fingers are pointing at, former Secretary Samuel Pierce, who ran HUD for all 8 years of the Reagan administration. What Congress is now finding out is that Pierce was not just all but invisible to the public. He was apparently all but invisible at the agency, where no one at the top seemed to know what was going on, not even the agency's own Inspector General.
You don't even know whether HUD knows how much money the government has to, in effect, pay to these people to perform the service.
That's correct, sir.
Pierce pointed the finger at his chief aide, Deborah Gordine. She knows where the money went, Pierce said. If so, she's not telling. When congressional investigators asked her, she took the fifth. Not only did HUD money disappear into profits for influential friends, but HUD employees themselves were pocketing funds, like Marilyn Harrell, who's been dubbed Robin Hood for stealing $5.5 million and allegedly giving it to the poor.
I in no way justify what I have done as being anything less than sin.
HUD's problems, say critics, are the result of 8 years of neglect. Under Ronald Reagan, HUD's budget dropped from $34.2 billion to $16.8, more than 50%. Over the same time, the number of homeless ballooned to anywhere from 500,000 to nearly 3 million.
The signal was sent. We don't care what you do. And many people whose motives were less than honest took that signal and ran with it.
The man in charge of cleaning up Washington's newest scandal is the new HUD Secretary, Jack Kemp. Kemp has already ordered audits and restructured the way HUD money is contracted. But can one man change the way a system is operated for years?
I'll make sure that HUD is run with an eye on help to the needy and get the greedy out of the process.
Well, we're an ethical nation, and we should be shocked when we see this. Do we have problems in other departments? No question about it. But influence peddling is alive and well in Washington. The place reeks with it.
And one troubled regional office that HUD has been administering was uncovered this week. It was down in Texas. We have the story there from Scott Pelley.
In HUD's Southwest Regional Office, bureaucrats are buried by paper. Billions of dollars in housing transactions are shuffled annually, and somewhere in all this, $3 million disappeared. This month, Reba Lovell was indicted on charges of embezzlement. Prosecutors say she and at least one other closing agent in the region pocketed money from HUD property they sold. No one noticed for 2 months.
In this region, we're closing in excess of $1.25 billion probably a year. With that volume, it's understandable. But we have tightened it up.
The Southwest region also has its share of the growing influence peddling scandal. A proposal to renovate this Arlington, Texas apartment complex sailed through the bureaucracy in only 2 weeks. The developer was Ronald Reagan's 1980 New Hampshire campaign director. Gerald Carmen later became head of the General Services Administration and an ambassador. Shortly after leaving government, he brought his HUD proposal to Arlington. Local developer Anthony Leemaster was the only other bidder. His firm spent $25,000 on its proposal in a deal Leemaster now believes was fixed.
Really what happened is we crashed a party. We went to a party that we thought was for the public, and apparently it was a private party.
Carmen declined an interview. Arlington officials say his project was chosen strictly on its merits, but Arlington's housing director acknowledges business is often done this way.
It's not unusual that those people that previously worked for HUD and new HUD officials that would join together and put programs together as consultants. I've seen that, and I'm sure you have as well.
Meanwhile, audits are continuing in order to determine whether other surprises are hidden in the agency's vast piles of paper. Scott Pilley, CBS News, Fort Worth.
We're on the move, leading the way to a better tomorrow through innovations in telecommunications, medical systems, power generation, automotive electronics, components, and automation. With over 28,000 employees at 400 locations coast to coast. We are Siemens.
Now, Red Lobster's new 5-star shrimp sampler. 5 kinds of shrimp on one plate, just $8.95.
More for you, David Freeman.
Savory grilled shrimp, scrumptious scampi, Cajun popcorn, and more. 5 kinds for just $8.95.
More for you, Stacy Class.
A kid's meal, $1.95. Hurry.
Red Lobster, there's more for you to love.
Friday through Sunday, it's our weekend special. Steak and shrimp, just $10.95.
Incredible. Patients come in, they don't even tell me they smoke. It's only after I examine them that I find out they're trying to quit.
Yeah, you know what I tell them? It's an addiction to nicotine. You need treatment. Today we can treat nicotine addiction.
Patients don't know that. They just don't know that.
Well, it's a shame they don't come to us.
Yeah.
See your doctor. On July 5th, declare your freedom from smoking.
The Turkish government organized a massive protest rally today in Istanbul. It was directed at neighboring Bulgaria. The demonstrators were protesting Bulgaria's deportation and alleged repression of ethnic Turks. Bulgaria has forced out some 60,000 ethnic Turks this month alone. In Tehran, the cabinet was briefed today on the historic visit to Moscow this week of Iran's top leader. The trip came less than 3 weeks after the death of the Ayatollah Khomeini. Anthony Mason in Moscow has that.
It was a strange picture. The speaker of Iran's Islamic parliament smiling with the leader of an atheistic superpower, the country Ayatollah Khomeini once called a satanic force. But the package of economic deals which Hashemi Rafsanjani took home to Iran this weekend means the two countries have become, in the Soviets' favorite words this week, very friendly.
It's happening because Iran is desperate for help with constructing its economy. Its economy remains shattered and in a state of collapse. And the Western states that have the money, such as the Americans, the Europeans, the Japanese, haven't got the confidence in the leadership of Iran to invest there.
In Moscow, Rafsanjani also went shopping for military hardware for Iran's battered army. He left with the kind of promise of cooperation that the Soviets reserved for their closest allies. Gorbachev gained too. The photo sessions alongside Rafsanjani will ease worries of Iran's Islamic revolution spilling over the border into Soviet Central Asia. Muslims are the Soviet Union's fastest growing minority, and when riots in Uzbekistan earlier this month killed nearly 100 people, Gorbachev declared that fundamentalism had bared its teeth. Rafsanjani did not challenge that remark. We have agreed, he said, not to interfere in each other's internal affairs. Rafsanjani said it was time to forget the past, something he is as yet unwilling to do with the United States. But the Soviets insisted they weren't trying to score political points off the West. Said one official, surely it's good for the whole world that the Iranians are talking to someone. Anthony Mason, CBS News, Moscow.
A ceasefire took effect today in Angola after a 14-year civil war that claimed more than 100,000 lives. It's part of the new peace agreement between the Marxist government and rebels backed by the United States and South Africa.
Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose.
Some love the night, but he preferred the dawn. For how could sleepers know the taste of hot croissant and coffee? The richest coffee I'd ever tasted.
Discover the pleasure of rich French roast, new from Maxwell House. Rich French roast coffee. We can't give you France, but we'll give you the flavor.
I stained this last year, and it's fading already. Why?
You didn't protect it with Thompson's Water Seal Stain.
Look at that cracking. Guess I used the wrong stain.
You did. Only Water Seal Stain contains Thompson's Water Seal. It seals water out, holds color in, for a freshly stained look year after year.
With Water Seal Stain, the next time won't be for a long time.
Thompson's Water Seal Stain. Beauty that lasts at last.
This is a phone. This is a finger. This is how easy it is for anyone to get 100% fiber optic long-distance calls that cost less than AT&T and sound better. Just call US Sprint now and talk with the best.
Next time you get heartburn, consider yourself lucky, because now Rolaids comes in assorted fruit flavors, still calcium-rich, sodium-free, and as effective as ever. Assorted flavored Rolaids. Relief never tasted so good.
It's been 25 years now since 3 young civil rights workers were murdered in Mississippi. A caravan of freedom riders marking the anniversary returned to New York City today, and there were dramatic reminders of the old struggle. Aaron Hayes reports.
Florence Sayer, 81 years old, on her way to the Freedom Caravan rally today, sees evidence that an old enemy, discrimination, is still around.
My good deed for today.
Mrs. Sayer, once a Harlem school teacher, spent the summer of 1964 fighting for civil rights in Mississippi.
Sure, I was scared. But I'm scared when I ride in the subway now. We all have little scares.
25 years ago, there was reason to be scared. Just before she arrived in Mississippi, 3 civil rights workers were murdered while trying to help blacks register to vote. But Florence Sayer stayed to teach in a Mississippi freedom school, helping black kids with their education and helping their parents learn to read and to vote.
And have an input. And so that the man who's getting elected says, oh, these people want me to do such and thus. Well, if they're going to vote for me, I'm going to have to do such and thus.
There were threats from white Southerners who didn't accept what Florence Sayer and hundreds of others wanted to do. But the threats didn't slow the freedom movement. They gave it a momentum that carried it 25 years to today. The Freedom Caravan ended here in New York, but these people say they're not satisfied with the progress of the past, so they fanned out across the city, registering New Yorkers to vote.
Voter registration, register to vote.
For Florence Sayer, this was a day of victory, of pride, of progress.
We've come a long way, and I say if I never did another thing in my life, I have earned my pay for being here.
Earned her pay and then some. The old enemy, discrimination, may still be around, but thanks to Mrs. Sayer and those like her, it's not what it used to be. Aaron Hayes, CBS News, New York.
Freedom!
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 And that's our report. Connie Chung will be here tomorrow. Later tonight on West 57th, L.A. gangs fighting over turf and drugs. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
Michigan International Speedway. It's live flag-to-flag coverage of the Michigan 400 tomorrow on CBS Sports.
This is CBS.